Hello and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project, and thank you so much for tuning in. I have a fantastic guest with me today. He calls himself a regular guy, but I call himself a little bit more than that. His name is Rafael Gomez, also known as Sifu Rafael. He is an entrepreneur, founder of Speaking Prowess, and the host of 6 live shows. He is passionate about empowering individuals to reach their full potential. He is the owner and instructor of Max Martial Arts and Fitness, a 10,000-foot facility in New York where he combines his expertise in martial arts with leadership development. I'm just going to call you Sifu. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. And where do I send the check for that introduction?
I'll let you know as soon as we sign
Okay.
off. Now, you are an amazing person. You are so positive, you're so energetic, and you help so many people in so many different ways. So it's just such an honor to talk to you again and to have you on my show.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. And I had a blast when you were in mine. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. That was really a lot of fun.
Mm.
So tell us, how did you get interested in martial arts and fitness at a very young age? How did that happen? And so take us through that journey.
So movement has been the catalyst for everything I do. It has really inspired me daily. So much so that at a very young age, I lost the ability to walk. I contracted polio. When the doctor came, I'm Colombian. When the doctor came to the house, and I'm number 10 of 12 kids. So you can
Whoa.
imagine the doctor had to come to, this is back in the day where doctors came to the house calls, right? And he came to give everybody the polio shot. I was so terrified. I ran and hid in an armoire, not a closet, an armoire. And I, the doctor, he, he gave everybody the shot, didn't recognize that I was not the one that I didn't get the shot. And I'm the only one that was affected negatively because of it. So my actions caused me to get polio. My legs turned backwards. So the
Oh,
doctors actually had to put them back. I wore braces like Forrest Gump, if you recall, and Forrest Gump, the movie. And eventually I got out of them. But for me to walk 10 feet would have taken me an hour.
wow.
So therefore, I understood that mobility was something that before that I took it for granted. And now it was all I had.
Wow. How old were you at the time?
Probably like 3.
Oh my goodness.
I wore special shoes till I was 12. But so I started training in martial arts at the age of 10. Once I started moving, if you recall the movie Forrest Gump, once he started moving and the kids were chasing him, he ran out of the braces. And it's almost like what I did. So that when I got old enough, I used to love playing tag and have people chasing me. And one time, I think it was 50 kids playing in my neighborhood. Nobody can catch me. And it was pretty funny.
Okay, were they all 50 of them chasing you at the same time?
No, I mean, we were all playing tag.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but it wasn't 50, but it was several of them chasing
Uh-huh.
me. And it was pretty interesting. And I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, wow, I can actually move, even though I couldn't before.
Wow. That's an incredible story.
That's what makes me understand and be in gratitude every day. Gratitude has really defined the way I do things.
Mm-hmm.
And movement has also defined how I do everything.
Mm-hmm. So even from that moment at that very young age, you understood the power of gratitude. So then,
I don't remember complaining also.
oh, you just aren't meant to complain. That's just not in your
So,
DNA. You wouldn't know how, is
correct.
my guess.
Yep.
So then how did you end up in the martial art? Did you just was there a studio or a school near you, or how did that come about?
Actually, I got very lucky. I was privately trained for 6 months, and the way it worked out is around 10 years old, we were all hanging out, and my friend is leaving. I'm like, "Where you going?" He goes, "I gotta go home." I'm like, "Can I come?"
Hmm.
And he's like, "You want to come?" I'm like, "Yeah." So when we show up, I didn't know his dad was a master, and he was going home because his dad was going to train him. So his dad's like, "Who's he?" He goes, "He wanted to come." So he goes, "You're going to do what we're doing." I said, "Okay." And he started training me. And I trained every day for 6 months with that gentleman. And it was pretty incredible.
Hmm. That is so New York sounding.
Yes, it was in New York.
I mean, it just sounds like that. Yeah, that I can see that happening in a New York neighborhood. So, when you had your first class with him or your first experience, did you go home and say, "Hey, mom, dad, guess what I'm doing right now?" And did they even know ahead of time? They couldn't have because that was a spur of the moment thing.
I didn't tell anybody. My parents had no idea. My parents never knew I trained. And only when I was in an Inside Kung Fu magazine did some of my family members say, "Hey, look," because I had it and somebody came like, "You're in there?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then they said, "Wow." And even though I did Kung Fu, they go, "Wow, you do karate, right?" I'm like, instead of me correcting them, I said, "Sure,
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times it's easier just to say, "Yeah, okay."
sure."
Yeah.
Whatever would have makes you happy.
Okay. I know, right? I've been training for over 20 years and I still have a friend that says, "Oh, you go to karate." And I'm like, "Yeah. Mhm. How's your karate going?" Just fine."
And there's nothing wrong with karate. It's just not what I do.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So then when did you get to the point that you thought you wanted to have your own school and you wanted to train people in that same art form?
At the age of being in high school,
Mhm.
throughout my whole high school, I created a Kung Fu club. And in my high school, there was like three schools that were very close, and we all kind of. I was on the gymnastics team. I was on the handball team. I used to help coach the diving team. And what wound up happening is I found that this one does this kind of style, this one does arnis, this one does karate, this one does taekwondo, this one does. So what I said is, we had in Queens, the houses kind of ran like a railroad. So my living room and my dining room kind of were like one huge room,
Mhm.
probably I would say 18 by 75. And what wound up happening was that I said to my dad, "Is it okay if we move the furniture and my friends come over and we train?" He's like, "Sure." So we moved so we had one huge room. We took the furniture and we put it into another bedroom. And I would say 3 to 4 times a week. We trained, and it was all different styles. We all try to help each other, work with one another, and we all were there to guide each other and to push each other. So I already started in high school. I already started my first Kung Fu club. And it was pretty
Wow.
interesting.
What a wonderful experience of collaboration and support between different artists and art forms rather than, sometimes you get the egos that, well, my style is the only style that really works or whatever. But, especially those, young men, I can just see that. That's such a beautiful story.
One of the things that we didn't wear gear.
Mm-hmm.
So when we fought.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't train with gear. We just, we have our gi and that's it. And, that was a little scary at first, but you get used to it. And that's real life a lot of times, if it happens on the street, there's no gear.
I remember a gentleman later on. Uh, I thought I had him, and he turned around and gave me a back. As he spun, he gave me a back fist. He caught me really good, and my mouth filled with blood. And I was like,
Oh,
"Wow, that was incredible!" And I was like,
oh.
I was like giving him a thumbs up. I said, I got to go spit it out. I'll be back. So I went to the bathroom. I spit it out. I came back and we kept going. But I was so enamored when I can learn something. Even though I got hit, I learned that you don't count somebody out because you think, I thought I had him. He was going to the floor, but at the last second he spun and hit me. And it was beautiful. And I was like, wow, that's so cool.
Well, I wished I could have seen it, although back then I would have been horrified. But the other side of that too is that, yeah, you got hit and then you knew, okay, I can take a hit. And that's kind of what happens when we train and we get a little too excited and somebody gets, a little punch or thrown maybe a little bit too enthusiastically, let's say. It's like, okay, I know I can take it and get back up and continue. So there's a lot of lessons in that in itself.
One of the things that I say, I've never gotten knocked out,
Mm,
except when I've had surgery. Like I had 3 knee surgeries. I only have 2 knees, so go figure that.
mhm,
But I've never been knocked out, and it's not something I want to take pride in. But I'm just like, I wonder what it feels
mhm.
like.
Okay, so then,
It's there's still time. There's still time.
right? Yeah, well, let's today not be the day. So then, okay, one, you finished high school. Where did you go from there? Did you go to college or did you just go right into the workforce or did you say, okay, I'm going to open a school?
What wound up happening is I went into a program, and the program paid me to learn,
Mm,
and they paid my salary. So half a day I went to school, and the other half a day I went to work for the company.
mhm,
And it was pretty interesting. It was in architecture. So it was phenomenal because I would go to the school in Manhattan, and my transportation was paid for, my lunch was paid for, back and forth. Then I would go to work, and I would be there several hours. And not only did they pay for my schooling, they paid me when I worked, which is kind of unheard. And when I found out, I had just took, I found this program, and I don't remember how I found it. And I was like, at first I was like, this is not real, right? They're like, no, this is real. And when I got all the equipment, everything I needed, all my drawing supplies, everything, and they gave it to me. This is still not real. And then when I got my first paycheck, I'm like, is it going to bounce? And it was incredible. And afterwards, after I graduated, the company hired me,
wow.
and it was incredible. And I did not start training right away with
Mhm,
it. I never trained in a school
mhm,
until I was probably in my 20s.
mhm,
And then when I went to the school, it was only morning classes because I would go in the morning. I would go from 5 in the morning until 12, and
mhm.
then I would go to work.
So you worked out at 5 a.m. from 5 a.m. until noon.
Some of the guys left. They probably would leave around 8 or 9 in the morning. And I would stick around and see who else wants to work, who else wants to fight, who else wants to do tramping or throwing or anything like that. And if somebody got tired, I'm like, oh, you go rest. I'm gonna go work with this guy. He looks new, he looks fresh. So for me, um, it was not about me. It was about moving, and it
Mhm,
was about knowledge acquisition. But
mhm,
knowledge acquisition was not enough. I had to actually be able to do it, to
mhm,
use what I learned in a real life situation.
mhm,
So for me, that always was what triggered me. That's what always got me going. It's like, this stuff works
mhm,
because I can fight with it. Later on, I also became a bodyguard, and my first one-time gig was Jennifer Beals. I was her bodyguard for a day, and then I also that was my celebrity one. And but then I
Uh-huh.
also did private bodyguarding, and then I also became a bouncer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 5 years as a bouncer. I was the only bouncer that the police never came looking for the next day.
Wow.
But I was also the smallest bouncer because
Uh-huh.
most guys I'm 6'1". They were 6'4", 6'8", 300. I mean, 250 and up.
Mm-hmm.
I was 170 something. And when I first applied, the owner kind of looked at me and goes, "What do you want?" I said, "I'm here to apply for." He goes, because a friend of mine suggested me. He told him about me. He goes,
Mm-hmm.
he told me you. I didn't expect you to be so little because he's used to these big
Right.
guys. And I'm like, I said, yeah, I can. I said, well, throw somebody up.
Mm-hmm.
And he did, and I handled him. And then he goes, when can you start? So that's how I was able to work in not only that nightclub, but I was called to go work on different nightclubs, including the Palladium in New York City before it closed down. So I was a
Wow.
lot of times in the front, all different kinds of nightclubs.
Mm-hmm. So I guess that just illustrates the point that size really doesn't matter. It's how you use what you've got.
That's why you're so deadly.
That's right. So let's segue that into because you teach a lot of women. You teach a lot
Yeah.
of women self-defense classes. What got you interested in doing that? I mean, what was the evolution of, from the bouncer to then going on to, opening up your own school?
Well, it's very interesting. When I started training in the style that I do currently, I already knew a lot of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I went in there, I told them I know nothing.
Mm-hmm.
The reasoning was because I didn't want anything held back.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted for them to say, you know nothing. We're going to teach you the basics. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If I would have come in there and said, I've been training since I'm 10, they would have said, oh, we're going to bypass all this stuff and just teach you this stuff. And I would have missed out on the basics, on the
Mm-hmm.
simple things, on the things that people first learn. And
Mm-hmm.
so for a long time, I I played as I'm just like you. I'm just a white belt. I'm just a nobody. And it was important for me to come in and be truly humble as
Mm-hmm.
far as please teach me. I know nothing. Because I needed to empty my cup
Mm-hmm.
to become who I am today. If I would have come in there with a cup full or half full or three quarters or whatever, I would have filled it with stuff and I would have used the old stuff. So for me, anytime I take something on, I want to know the basics.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the foundation so I can build?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's everything.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because the basics are so important. If you don't have a solid foundation, it's going to fall apart. And I know a lot of people, when we get some new people that will show up at the dojo, especially some of the guys, it's they want to go right into like the throws and the grappling, and it's like, no, not yet. You just need to know the basics, and we continue to go back to the basics and practice that foundation, as often as we can because it's so important.
Without a doubt. It's very interesting now when I have people coming in and they can be black belts and other styles. I'm like, congratulations. I'm so thrilled that you're a black belt. I said, do you know my style? Well, yeah, I'm sure I can get it. Can I come in as a brown belt, a purple belt, a black belt? I said, I would never take away your belt,
Mm-hmm.
but everybody starts at what?
Mm-hmm.
Every and people get offended and they leave.
That was
That's
my next
okay.
question.
I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
You are too good for me. I can't teach you.
Mm-hmm.
Empty your cup, become a white belt, and then I can teach you. And the ones that have stayed, the ones who are black belts in other styles,
Mm-hmm.
have been with me for a very long time
Mm-hmm.
because they emptied their cup and they took their ego out.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that bothers me the most about martial artists is their ego.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped going to martial arts conventions because sometimes I would walk into a room and I'd be hit with an ego. Everybody's ego was so big, I had to take out my sword to cut it. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, if I want to be in here,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's like, oh, you're this. I'm like, no, I'm here to learn from you.
Yeah.
And
You
so
know when you can actually feel
mm,
and smell the ego, that it's pretty big.
it's huge.
Yeah. Wow. Never been to a convention, but I've done quite a few seminars with other people who were not, my sensei. And yeah, there was an awful lot of ego, and I always went in there with, a white belt on. Let's just be clear here. And I would also get a friend of mine from the dojo, and I says, if you come with me, I'll pay your, your fee because I don't want
Nice.
to go by myself. But it was remarkable to watch other people who were basically trained in the same style that we were, and to see how they approached the training and how they approached each and every technique. It was a learning experience.
It is. It is. For me, it's always if you're, and I'm sorry, I'm going to offend some people right now. And you know
It's
what?
okay.
It is what it is, right? If you got your black belt 20, 30, 40 years ago, but you're not training today, are you a black belt? Or
Hmm.
you were used to be?
Hmm.
If your skills are not honed,
Hmm.
listen, I don't want to fly in an airplane with a guy who got his pilot license 20 years ago and just says, yeah, that's it. I'll fly. No.
Hmm. Hmm.
I want to go with a pilot who trains even today. And the good ones continue to train. I have friends of mine who are pilots. Yes, part of their training is flying regularly. But what if they haven't flown in 7 years? Do you want to
Hmm.
get on a plane with them? Not
Mm-mm.
me.
Mm-mm. No. And that's another good point because as we mature, and I'm not exactly sure how old you are, but I know how old I am, and I think and I are probably in the same, age range, that even as we get older, we can still continue to train, we can still continue to work out and do the things that we have been doing. There's no reason to stop. We might have to get a little smarter about how we're approaching our training or our workouts or whatever, but you never, ever stop.
It's if you stop, well, let me put it to you this way. What happened if you stop pooping? Just trying to take it on a funny note, right?
Hmm.
You're going
You
to be
stop
full of it.
moving, you die.
Stop pooping, you're going to be full of it and you will die.
Hmm.
So consider training that you need to do it every day. I train 7 days a week, even when I go on vacation. And people are like, but you're on vacation. What are you doing? I'm like, I'm living is
Hmm.
what I'm doing. I'm living the way I am meant to live. I am a warrior.
Hmm.
Just because I may be wearing a suit.
Hmm.
I was in California. I was at an event and we were all in, after the event, we all went out to the lobby and we're all hanging out. And I'm in a suit. And I said, hey, you guys, I do push-ups every day. Really? How many can you do right now? I said, how many do you want me to do? Like, so I dropped down and I'm going and I'm doing push-ups and push-ups and push-ups. And there was a wedding party that came in and they stopped and they looked, they're like, that guy's doing push-ups in a suit. And then They kind of moved, but then they came back and they're like, he's still going. So I think I did like 70 or so. And it's funny because afterwards, some of the people, because they were hanging out, some of the people from the wedding party came over to hang out with us. And then they wanted to do more push-ups with us. So I got a lot of the people that were with us to do push-ups as well. And so for me, it doesn't matter the outfit. It's the person. And I know who I am.
I'll bet that bride was just thrilled that part of her wedding party left to go hang out with you guys and do push-ups.
Well, it was at their after party, so I think
Oh, oh,
it was
that was
okay.
okay then. That was okay then. Yeah, but that's so funny. So now, at what point, because let's start with you're combining your experience as a martial artist with leadership development. How did that come about? And I mean, to me, it makes perfect sense because a lot of even people, who I don't want to say graduated from our dojo, but some of the kids who grew up, and as adults left and are doing amazing things. And a lot of it is because of the training that they received. Not that they're going out in the world and they're beating people up, but it's they go out in the world and there's that amount of like the discipline and the confidence. So how did you combine those two, and when did you have that aha moment that you could do that?
I had it very early on. People have always asked my advice, even when I was a youngster. When I was in high school, I'm 6'1". Usually gymnasts are not this tall.
No.
When I tried out for the gymnastics team, the coach looked at me and kind of laughed and said, no. I said, it's tryouts. He goes, no. I said, well, you have to try me out. He goes, no. I said, well, then I'm going to go talk to the principal. So he goes, okay, what could you do? We were away from the mats and we were on the wooden floor. I started flipping on the floor. And he's like, okay, you're on the team. But initially, I learned to flip on concrete. We flipped on the streets, me and my friends. We were not we were not normal. And so eventually I got on the team, but afterwards I went and started teaching at a different high school gymnastics. And on Saturday and Sundays, I would go there and they would have an, after school type of program at this school. And I got paid to teach gymnastics when I was in ninth grade. And so I also volunteered throughout high school and I would teach swimming before school started. I would go an hour earlier before school started. And I would teach kids who didn't know how to swim, swimming. So it was always about that leadership of how can I help? That's what I consider true leadership. It's not about me. It's about how can we accomplish something together. So for me, that's always been, I guess, my
Let's
gift. Help
let's
somebody.
go back to the flipping on cement or concrete. So when you're talking flipping, are you talking like the rolls or are you talking like
Cartwheels,
handsprings?
handsprings, cartwheels, somersaults, back somersaults, forward somersaults, Russian twist, all that stuff.
Wow. That must have felt real good.
It did. It did. I didn't know any better. Remember, I had lost the ability to move. So when I could move, I did anything, anything to move. I used to climb. I'm not afraid of heights. I've fallen from heights so many times as a youngster that it's very funny because I always tell people that I have more lives than a cat. And it's very funny because recently, the beginning of this year, we were sitting around the house with some family members. Let me put that off, sorry. And what wound up happening is my sister says to me, oh, yeah, I came into the room. We lived when I was in Colombia, we lived in a high school. And back then, they used to build a whole apartment complex. And my parents My dad was the principal, my mom was a teacher, so they built them.
Ah.
So we were there. So in one of the classrooms, they had removed all the floorboards, and it was like a, a dungeon almost, and it was all mud and everything. But it was 14 feet, and I fell in. And they were looking for me, and my sister said, "We found you." And when we found you, my other sister said, "I thought you were dead." And no, I just fell, but I was out. So I like I've never been knocked out, but I've passed out from falling. And so many different times I've fallen from places, and it's pretty incredible. I'm not afraid of heights. I'll be the first one to climb up on something. I used to climb trees, jump from tree to tree, jump from rooftop to rooftop, like nothing. So for me, doing somersaults, doing trampoline and stuff of that
Mhm.
nature was just fun.
Well, I have to tell you, I can still, well, I do my rolls and my break falls at least 3 times a week. And I can roll forward and backward on, I haven't done it on cement, but I do it on a hardwood floor on a regular basis. And that, feels pretty like, hey, that's pretty good. Somebody who can do that at, this point in my life. But I did have a really spectacular fall about a year and a half ago in the winter, just walking out of the dojo that apparently there was a little bit of moisture that had iced over, so it was black ice. One minute I was taking a step, and the next minute I was flying through the air, and all my stuff was falling around me. And the next thing I knew, I was on the ground. And the guys saw it, and well, they heard it too, because I fell hard. And this was on cement. And they all came running out, and I just looked at them, and all my stuff is like in a circle around me. Even the papers fell out of my notebook.
Wow.
And the first thing I did was look at them and say, "Did you see my break fall?"
Love it.
And then, they're trying to help gather up all my stuff, and Sensei came out with the salt. It's like little too late. And he says, "You did everything right." I didn't even think about it. It was just, and I always wondered in the real world, would my training kick in? But there I was a 66-year-old woman, fell on cement. And on the way home, I was starting to get a little shaky, going, oh man, thinking about the things that could have gone wrong. So I had to talk myself out of that. And then once I got home, I thought, maybe I should take some ibuprofen just prophylactically. And I thought, no,
Yes,
wait
indeed.
until tomorrow morning and see how you feel. I woke up and I felt great. Nothing hurt. I didn't injure myself. And I thought, damn, I am going to do this every day until while I'm on this planet.
Absolutely. It's very interesting when you can actually do something instinctively and
Hmm.
it works and you're a little surprised. I did something similar. I was with my boss and we get out of her car and we're going to go see a client. So I got my briefcase, I have her briefcase, and there's a little snow on the curb and she gets out, she's going to go across the street. I get out, I step, boom, I go flying. Like 5 feet up. I come down, I hit both, but it was at the edge. If I didn't tuck my head would have hit the
Herb.
curb.
Mm.
And she kind of like saw it. She's like, I saw you in the air. And I like hit, stood up, wiped off. I started walking to her. She's like, oh my God, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, let's go. We have a meeting. I didn't think about it. And afterwards, she's like, you sure you're okay? I'm like, yeah, no. But it's important that the lessons we learn, the ones that work, right, that we continue to do. And one of the things I always tell my students, including myself, is take what works and leave the rest alone. If it doesn't work for you, then it's not for you. So we need to prove to ourselves what works because in a safe environment, on a
Hmm.
mat and so forth,
Hmm.
because what works you should use,
Hmm.
or at least have it in, I call it in your tool belt,
Right.
right?
Right.
That's why Batman carried so many different things in his tool belt. And
Hmm.
he was nobody special. He just had all the right gear.
Mhm. I love the fact that you call yourself one of your students.
I am.
Right. You're always a student, always. And there's always opportunities to learn new things and perfect techniques. But I just want to go back to the falling because we actually had a young lady. Um, Actually, she's taking a little leave right now because she's getting married. 30 years old, started, training with us. And she was only training, I think, for like 3 months. And she and her fiance and her future mother-in-law were up in Vail at a ski trip. And they were in this one, like a bar or something. They were walking down a flight of steps. And on one step, there was something sticking out that caught her. She caught her foot in it, and she started falling, and she tried to like right herself and got thrown against the wall, which launched her further down the stairs. She immediately went into a front break fall on the stairs, and she didn't get hurt. She hurt, her knee got banged up, or one of her legs, but she could have fallen right on her face. But even just those 3 months. So ladies, if you're listening, you might want to start training.
So you asked me why I like training. What was the catalyst for doing women's self-defense?
Mm-hmm.
For that reason alone, because you just called out the women and you said you need to do it. A lot of moms come in and they're like, you're gonna wear pajamas? That's for the kids. Guess what? A man who attacks a woman doesn't care
Mm-hmm.
if you wore pajamas or not. They're actually gonna attack you because they think you're weak.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I do it is to empower women, not to be weak or meek. Oh, it's too, no, forget that. You need to take control of your body and your life.
Mm-hmm.
When do you prepare? When somebody's attacking you? It's a little
Mm-hmm.
late.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to prepare before. We never want to be attacked, ever. I knew how to protect people as a bodyguard.
Mm-hmm.
But most importantly, I also protected myself.
Mm-hmm.
So many times as a bouncer, people attacked me because I went to break things up and they saw me like, oh, I can punch him in the face or I can
Mm-hmm.
attack him. I was never hit. I was never fully attacked. People tried, but this is why the police never came looking for me.
Mm-hmm.
I moved out of their way. I got around them and I held them and I whispered, do you want to go home or do you want to go to jail? And they were in shock because a split second ago, they were trying to take my head off. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
being nice to them
Mm-hmm.
because in the heat of the moment, they didn't know who I was.
Mm-hmm.
We could have been friends. They didn't know who I am. Yet maybe the liquor
Mm-hmm.
took over for them. They may be a nice, beautiful person, but they became angry and emotional. And what if I became emotional, like the other bodyguards I used to work with, who used to beat people up,
Ooh.
and then the police used to come for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the owners loved me. They're like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Rafael, can you work? Because we've never had trouble with
Mm-hmm.
ever. If anything, I was reliable. I showed up early. I stayed late
Mm-hmm.
because the way I do one thing is the way I do all things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm there to help.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going to be a bouncer and I'm hurting the clients, how am I helping the business? If you have a bouncer who's hurting the clients because maybe they got punched by accident, all
Mm-hmm.
of a sudden, they're not helped.
Mm-hmm.
I saw firsthand a martial arts instructor get hit incorrectly because he didn't hold the pads correctly for the person
Oh.
hitting. He got so angry that he hurt the person.
Mm-hmm.
then I was sitting around and it was a bunch of martial arts instructors. Maybe this is why I don't sit with them too many times nowadays. Their egos were so big. And he said, yeah, I was sparring with this guy and he hit me hard. So I broke his nose to let him know who I
Oh.
was. And I, right there, I was like, okay, you and I are on a different level.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's not about me hurting someone. It's about me empowering them so they can be the best version of them.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of instructors, it's a dangerous game when you're teaching someone, especially someone who has no skills because they're out of control.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to be more diligent when you're holding pads or when you're doing anything with a beginner because they'll flail and they'll hit you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting because sometimes I'll tell my students, hit me. And they're like, are you sure? I'm like, please do. And when they hit me, I'm like, that's all? That's all you have? I said, really hit me. And they're like, you should. I'm like, come on. I said, you need to feel it. You need to understand it. So I'm okay. If you're in the martial arts and you can't get hit, get out.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't, if you're a chef and you get cut with a knife, it's because you're not paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
If you get burnt in the kitchen, it's because you're not paying attention. What does Sifu mean anyway? It means someone who's skilled at something. It means teacher. It could be, I can teach philosophy, I can teach math, I can teach whatever it is. I'm a Sifu.
Mm-hmm.
So teacher is really what Sifu means. It doesn't mean that, listen, I recently met somebody who's been in the martial arts before, and he was like, oh my God, you're a master. I'm like, stop. I stop because I'm no better than you. Oh, but I'm like, no, I'm just like you.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you. But let's cut that out and just be friends.
Mm-hmm.
So
No
for me,
such thing
it's,
as a master because, again, we're always learning and we're always improving or
but there's a
striving to.
lot of grandmasters in the world and a lot of Hall of Famers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's, I'm going to call somebody out again and I'm going to make some people angry. So here we go. I've been nominated for Hall of Fame so many times, but I have none of those certificates or trophies. You know why?
Ah. Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't want to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because in order to be nominated and to receive that certificate, I would have had to bring 10 people and pay for the table. I would have had to pay to be there. It's only $1,500. It's no big deal. I'm like, listen, if you really think I should be honored, then you should honor me. Let
Mm-hmm.
me ask you a question. If you get a Golden Globe Award as a celebrity, do you think the celebrity paid to be nominated?
Mm-hmm.
No.
No.
Do you think they paid? No, of course they're going to pay a lot more. They're going to drive limos. They're going to be on the red carpet. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to get them. So yes, it costs them personally a lot, but they don't pay to be on television.
Mm-hmm.
They don't pay to be presented with an award. If anything, right? The awards are free because the people who are holding these nominations and these award ceremonies, they're getting paid because they're putting it on television.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, don't tell me I've been nominated and then I have to pay to sit there or even to receive the award. You know what? In my martial arts school, there's nothing collecting dust. As many awards as I've received, I used to compete nationally and internationally. Some trophies were bigger than me. I don't know where they are. I used to bring them and put them in my basement, and then I used to clean my basement out, and they used to find themselves in the trash, and people like, why you throw those out? Don't they mean? I'm like, just winning it was all I need.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. I don't need dust collecting. And I'm an anomaly in that respect. And I get it. People like, listen, I don't even have my certifications up on my walls. I
Mm-hmm.
have paintings.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I have. That's art. That to
I
me is
I
to
want to
hang.
I want to backtrack a little bit because I just want to reiterate one more time for my listeners. I have a great audience for you ladies because we do talk about, self-defense a lot on the show. But what Sifu was talking about, doing the training every day, so it's a reflexive reaction, blah, blah, blah. Self defense is not something that you want to try and learn on the job. You want to have that background, you want to have those skills, and it's not nearly as scary as you think it might be stepping onto a martial arts mat. Well, it was for me, but I got over it. But it's so empowering. And Sifu, you use that word a lot because that's what it is when you have control of your emotions in a difficult situation, your body, your awareness, your environment. It is such an empowering experience. And you can't get that, ladies, with just taking one self defense class. And you and I have talked about this before, that's one of my pet peeves is women will take one class and think, okay, I got this. It's something you have got to practice on a regular basis. And it's like brushing your teeth. You're going to do it every day.
I have a group of women that paid for a private self-defense session with me, but they only wanted one. It's because they get together so a lot of times I don't want to do it, but it's a lot of women and they're nearby. So maybe they'll decide that this is worth their while. I've done so many free ones that I don't do them free. The
Mm-hmm.
reason I don't do them free is because the real saying is if you don't pay, you don't pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't pay, you don't engage
Mm-hmm.
or you don't show up. This is why I'm not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not cheap.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're not
If
cheap, but you might be easy. Da-dum-dum. That's a little joke.
easy going.
Yeah, there you go.
So when we consider, and you talked about it's not on the job training, what would you rather be? Afraid of stepping on the training floor or afraid because your life is in danger?
Mm-hmm.
What's scarier?
Mm-hmm.
What's scarier? You can die in the next minute, or
Mm-hmm.
you could be afraid
Mm-hmm.
or not. What's scary?
Mm-hmm.
How do you
And boy,
hand your life over to someone
exactly. And the world is a scary place, and it's getting scarier by the day. And
by the minute?
oh, yeah, right. I know it's just like exponentially just getting crazier. But now, and this is something I experienced myself, even when I hadn't been training very long, maybe a year or so, and it just was, I was noticing it one day that people were, not that they were avoiding me, but people didn't approach me anymore. That there's some reason, like, nobody tried to, either, you know, I don't know, just try and, I don't want to say pick me up, but nobody was picking on me in any way. In any aspect of my life, even when I would go home for a visit, I have four sisters, so well, it could turn into a cat fight. But even then, it was like, you have this either a confidence or an energy about you, an aura that people who might have ill intentions towards you, they can see that, they can sense it, and they're going to look at you and go, no, this is not an easy target. I'm going to move on to someone else. And that is magic.
That is magic. Well, consider this. If you remember that song, "Walk This Way," right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and your walk is different.
Mm-hmm.
You hold your head up. One of the first lessons that I teach to women is breathing. We need to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
You're being attacked. your breath is the most important. Your vocal ability is most important. Your communication skills, your verbal, put your hands up. Listen, I was attacked. And you don't have to be a young lady or a lady. You could be a man. I had 3 guys. One put a gun to my head, the other one to my throat.
Oh my God.
And so the first thing, and it's 2 in the morning, I was just coming home from work. I was working in a movie theater. I had my duffel bag and I had my paycheck in my bag. So the funny thing is, they stopped me. They pulled out of a van and they stopped me in front of my own house. And with the gun to my head, they make me walk into my backyard. Now, the first thing I said was, what could I do besides scream out for help? When there's a gun in your head, you're not going to scream out for help. What body language can I show? My hands went up. They were smart. They told me, put your hands down before I put a bullet. So they understood that I was hoping that one of my neighbors would have seen me put my hands up. So they were smart. So they took me into my own backyard. And then they realized it's not good, but it's too close to the house. So they took me around to the third house over, which was the corner. And then the guy with the gun actually went to pull the trigger, and the other guy said, "We don't have time." So
He
they asked,
did pull the trigger, or he was
no,
going
he
to?
was about to. He was about to.
Oh.
So the other guy over there, I'm just looking at them like, do what you need to do. And the other guy, now don't get me wrong, I was proactive. I had 2 007 knives in my tool belt. They patted me down and they didn't even feel it. So I was ready to put my hands down, take out the blades and go. And right before that, the guy said, we don't have time. And he took the knife and kind of like pushed a little bit on me. He didn't cut me, but he pushed the blade into me. And he said, give me your bag. So I said, take it. And then the other guy, this guy kind of pulled out. And then the other guy kept the gun. I put it behind me.
Oh.
And he said, take your shoes off. I said, no. Take your shoes off. I said, no. So then I said, fine. I took my shoes off. He goes, throw them. I said, no. Throw them. I said, no. So finally he goes, I'm going to put a bullet in you if you don't throw them. I said, fine, I'll throw the shoes away. He goes, now run after them. I said, no. I said, I run after them, you're going to shoot me in the back. So he got mad and he took off running the other way. I turned around. I never got my shoes. I turned around and started chasing him. Not the brightest moment in I can say. He's got the gun and I'm chasing him now.
Yeah, great idea.
He jumps into the van and they take off. But at no point was I afraid that I was going to die. Because if I would have had that in my head, they may have felt that. But they understood that I was not going to give in to it, especially when I was answering that back. So when you consider, I was ready to fight for my life. And it was not the first time. That's one of many. As a bouncer, as somebody who came home at 2 in the morning, pitch black, I've had a lot of people try to attack me, but that's one where actually I had 2 weapons pulled on me. And I've had other weapons pulled on me at different occasions. But if I was not trained, how would I have been able to handle that? So I tell every woman out there, don't wait to be put in a situation. Put yourself in the situation of, I want to.
That reminds me of a story that I heard when I was training in LA with my sensei's sensei. Yeah, I call him my sensei squared. and he was telling a story. So it was in, yeah, it was in LA, Studio City, I think. And there was several years ago, and there was some guy walking around going into beauty parlors, salons, and basically holding a gun to the owner's head. And, he actually shot and killed several women.
Mm.
And this woman was in her shop, she was a young woman. She had been training with Sensei for a while. And the guy came in and put a bullet to her, or put a gun to her head. And she just was like, okay, this is it. You know, this is my time. And she just kind of went into that mode of acceptance and, serenity. And the guy just looked at her and said, no, not you, not today. Took his gun and left the studio or the salon. So it was
Got
just like,
confidence.
yeah. And, she's like, okay, there's, this is what's going to happen. And whew, I mean, that's what we call gammon, when things are just falling apart and you just stay calm, cool, and collected. That was an extreme case. Like yours. I don't, yeah.
It's interesting when we can understand. I'm not afraid to die.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to die,
Mm-hmm.
but but he'll tell me when the time,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's my time.
Mm-hmm.
But until then,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna fight every day. I love
Mm-hmm.
to fight. I
Mm-hmm.
love to
I'll bet you do. So anyway, let's tell the listeners about, you have 6 live shows, and I got the names of, I think, the 2 of them. One is the coach's call, and that's the one I was on that show. I was delighted to be on that. And the other one is speaking prowess. And what are the other 4? Because I was trying to find them and I couldn't find them.
Sure. So actually, Speaking Prowess is actually coming in September. September 6th is going to be our first show on that one.
Oh,
And I also do Heroes Rising because I believe all coaches are heroes.
oh, that's
And then the
okay.
other one is called Business Prowess, and that one is we talk only on business. And then I do the Seer show, and that's on health,
Mm-hmm.
fitness, and mindset. And then the other one is called New Tip Daily. And that one is a coach comes on like yourself and you give out a couple of tips that
Mm-hmm.
somebody can benefit from. And so the last one is going to be Speaking Prowess. And so I have an event coming up November 22nd through the 24th. And if you go to speakingprowess.com /train, because it's not a speaking event, it's a training event. And it's not martial arts, even though we're going to start every morning. Friday morning, we're going to start with Tai Chi just to get people
Oh,
into the zone. I'm
yay.
going to teach some Tai Chi both Friday and Saturday morning. And then Sunday, we're doing sword fighting.
Oh,
So, Cheryl, I would love for you to be here with us. And so what's going to happen, it's all based on communication, and then it's all workshops on communication. And during the Friday, we're actually going, because it's communication, we're going to teach everybody about podcasting and do an actual live show called Heroes Rising. And then we're going to do Q&A, and those are going to be live too. And each trainer is going to be put on the spot because people in the audience are going to be able to ask questions, and everything is going to be, those segments are going to be live, which is going to be kind of cool. So once again, go to speakingprowess.com /train, TRAN. And I suggest you
okay.
train every day.
So the link is live now. I can put this in the show notes so people can go and sign up
Absolutely.
now and get more information.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's absolutely awesome.
And if you DM me or Cheryl, we will give you a code to save you up to $250.
Ooh,
Oh,
okay.
yes.
That's a great deal.
Mhm. But then I also, listen, I love to give. And like I said, I'm a giver. I want to help people. But if you say, I can't make it, but you want to support me, I have an affiliate program
Okay.
and you can make bank on it. You can make
It,
some good money on it because for me, it's about giving back. So if anybody recommends us
mm-hmm.
and somebody signs up, you or you have to DM me or DM Cheryl, and we will put you into the affiliate link, and you can get up to $200 just
Nice.
for saying, go there.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Sifu, this has been so much fun.
Mm,
I
Thank
just
you.
love talking to you. You are amazing. You are such an inspiration. I love what you're doing to help other people. I love what you're doing for your women's program and kids program. So I would love for the listeners, tell us one more time. I mean, of course, all the links are going to be in the show notes, but where can people find you? How can they connect with you? The link to your website, anything where they can find you and connect with you.
Sure. If you're in the New York area and you want to do training, we're maxfit.us, and that's the website for our martial arts. But if you want to connect with me, I'm on Facebook, Sifu Rafael G, and on LinkedIn, Sifu
Mhm.
Rafael. And then if you want to come to my event or even just learn more about communication, because we're also having online courses, it's speakingprowess.com. That's almost going live this week. But when you put /train, that's to come down and be part of this energy that we're going to be having.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Love talking to you.
Likewise, thank you.
And before we sign off, do you have one last bit of wisdom, pearl of wisdom, or something you want to leave with the listeners?
Yes, absolutely. So if you're looking at the screen right now, what you're seeing is a warrior. Her name is Cheryl.
Aw.
She is embodying what a warrior is. She lives it. She helps other people. So this is a woman who can not only take care of herself, but can help. So not only follow her, but engage with her. If you're a coach, if you're a martial artist, reach out to her. She's got 20 years experience. She's not a newbie, but she still has a white belt heart, just like I do.
Mhm. Mhm.
And she is also empowering so many people. So my word of advice, follow Cheryl.
Oh, thank you. Sifu, you're so sweet. You're just going to make me blush and or cry. I don't know which is going to come first, or maybe have a
Blushing
hot
looks
flash.
good on you. Blushing
Oh,
looks good.
boy, thank you. I don't blush very often anymore these days. So yeah, good on you. You made me do it. So, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Please share this episode with everyone you know. Ladies, I think it would be a really great idea if you got together with your girlfriends, listen to this episode together, could come up with some really wonderful ideas of taking care of yourself, self defense, training, whatever. Maybe get together, do a ninja ladies' night, anything that you can do to empower yourself because, as Sifu says, you don't want to wait until it's too late. And self defense is not something that you want to do on the job. So remember, it's your responsibility to take care of yourself. And do remember to put the phones down. Those cell phones are just horrible. You have no idea how much danger you're putting yourself in. So be safe, start training. And that is the way of the FemiNinja.